This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of the Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioner Soboroff, Figueroa Villa, Kim, and Saltzman are present, and we have a quorum. Number 1 on the agenda, commission comments.
Commission comments? I had a meeting after our last commission meeting up at the mental health unit, which is really, I think, probably the finest mental health unit in America. It is the standard. And I learned a lot, and I asked them to come here and do a presentation for us and for the public, and I see that will be happening. I was very proud of that. Let's move on.
We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Herman.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mr. Soboroff. Yeah, it's going to be great when you're able to bring in the presenters of the presentation for acknowledging all of us regarding mental health concerns. I know for a fact that the Obamacare does not provide the very basic dental or well-needed Obamacare. So, Mr. Commissioner, I'm glad that you're finally coming up with some valid concerns for the public's interest. Robin Hood wants you to know that if you continue to promote social well-being for the mentally ill, your constituents throughout Los Angeles, and many of our partakers in public meetings under the Brown Act, I'm sure Mayor Eric Garcetti will not disagree, because he has constantly violated our rights, our civil rights, under the Brown Act 54950 to 54963. And I'm going to keep it short and sweet and save you 50 seconds. Bye.
Thank you. I understand we have one more public comment card.
Pete White, Los Angeles Community Action Network. Good morning. Just on the comments around mental health and SMART. And so LAPD does have an award-winning SMART team, and it exports this model across the country. That team is deployed, those teams are deployed out of Central Division in Skid Row. There are only 8 teams, two-person teams, 8 teams that patrol for approximately 12 hours every day across 4 boroughs for 459 square miles. And those teams never make it to Skid Row. They leave Skid Row, but they never make it to Skid Row. And as a result, Brother Africa is dead. As a result, Brother Okanyo is dead. And the use of force against people with mental health issues in Skid Row continues to rise. And so when you talk about today, this presentation, I hope the presentation includes demands that we've put before you many times before. Adequate resources into mental health services and mental health teams across the city of Los Angeles, and not just more presentations about the program that could or should work, because it's not working in communities within a stone's throw of where it actually exists. So I'm hopeful that this becomes a priority and not more parading about the program as it's seen from the world's vantage point, and not from the ground's vantage point, because we don't see it, and people are dying as a result.
Thank you. We're now on item number 2, the report of the Chief of Police. Chief Beck.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners. This weekend we had our Reserve Appreciation Banquet. Was attended by well over 100 of our 405 Reserve personnel and their families. It was a time to celebrate our Reserve program, which, as you well know, donated more than $2 million worth of time last year to the city of Los Angeles. It's a great program, and was a good opportunity to recognize some of the folks that put in not only the most time but the most effort. Tonight I'll attend the State of the City speech by Mayor Garcetti, And now on to report on crime. So far, year to date, we've had 60 homicides as compared to 66 last year at this time. That's 6 less, or a 9.1% reduction compared to 14. It's also a 16.7% reduction as compared to 13. All other categories of violent crime remain up, although we had made some progress over the last 2 weeks. Property crime is up in 3 of the 4 categories, and total Part 1 crime up 14.1%. As I mentioned previously, this is the second week in a row that that number has been reduced, so we're looking for a positive trend to continue. Shootings are up in the city of Los Angeles. Number of victims shot up almost 24%, and all of our bureaus are seeing an increase in overall Part 1 crime. Gang crime is also up, with the notable exception of gang homicides. However, gang aggravated assaults are up significantly, up almost 40%. Traffic statistics. Citywide, we have about 12,867 reportable traffic collisions so far year to date. That's a 12% increase over the 11,400 last year. That's the bad news. The good news is that serious injury traffic collisions are down significantly, with a 13.2% reduction in the total. Hit and runs are up in LA, 8.2%, and serious hit and runs are up 26%. That's an 11 increase over the 41 that we had last year. Motor vehicle versus pedestrian accidents are down 1.6%, and serious motor vehicle versus pedestrian accidents are down 10.6%. Bicycle-involved traffic accidents are down across the board. We have 9,882 sworn personnel on payroll, 2,715 civilian personnel, 405 reserves, 372 specialist volunteers, 62 chaplain counselors, and 6,081 cadets. And that concludes my report.
Okay, we do have 3 public comment cards on this item. We have Prentice Jenkins, Mr. Herman, and James Lafferty.
Good morning. I was going to comment on something else, but I'll have to comment on this one. I was out there getting, they were searching me. Chief Beck, I want to know how far that machine is supposed to be from your body. The handheld, Chief Beck, excuse me, sir. I need to know how far that handheld scanner is supposed to be from your body. Should it be 3 inches when they're doing it, 4 inches, or should it be up on you? Because I'm the one that continues to talk about down low cops hitting up on your junk. And I'm not saying that cop was down low. I'm saying he did hit my stuff. And that's what I continue to tell you. Now, I need to know how far is that scanner supposed to be from your body? 2 inches, 3 inches, or 4 inches? How far is that supposed to be? Was he within his right to hit up against my penis? And I'm not saying he's a gay cop. I'm saying it just could have been an accident. I need to know how far the scanner is supposed to be from your body. How far is it? 2 or 3 or 4 inches, sir? Can you give me an answer?
This is not a time for discussion. It's public comment. I'll have somebody address that with you later.
Thank you, sir. Also, I'm continuing to address the mental illness in the Los Angeles Police Department and Los Angeles Fire Department. It's the old saying, tell them again, and tell them what you told them. You got a lot of mental illness. I don't know what that's about. That's what that was about. I've been through this before, and it beeped off before, and maybe they've done that one time before. That cop never touched me when he did it, but this one did. So you see my suspicion when I talk about down low cops. I have no problem with gay cops in the police department. I don't. They have the right to be employed. I have a problem with down low cops, so I don't know what that was about, but it hit up against my stuff twice. And I bet you don't want your
Thanks,
stuff
you're
hit
finished.
up against.
Thank you.
Mr. Herman?
Right, residents of Los Angeles, this is Chief Beck's report. My understanding, Mr. Beck, is that we made a good settlement, right? City of Los Angeles paid out $8.3 million for falsely accusing an African-American minority all this time, innocent people are being victimized by a process of racial profiling still in Los Angeles, Mr. Inspector General. And then a note regarding the alcohol sales at the city of Los Angeles. Let me remind you now. Besides, they did sign my name up as El Diablo because of the deaths that are caused by the hit-and-run capital of the world, Los Angeles. Unfortunately, alcohol sales for off-site consumption has become a public convenience of necessity for at the address at South Grand Avenue, Jose Huizar's location at 90071, located at the 300 South Grand Avenue. How pleasant, but yet no housing for the minorities. Excellent. And what about item 2 of this is the agenda from City Hall, by the way. That way it's on the record. 7-Eleven Convenience Market, necessity for more alcohol and convenience at West Victory Boulevard's Suite 7, Van Nuys. How many times have we petitioned you, Mr. Inspector General? There needs to be an audit to see how many alcohol permits Herb Wesson and all those morons from the council continue to influence us on alcohol and drugs. Stop the war on corruption. Please. Then we wouldn't have to hear these unfortunate situations and the public would be happy. And those who believe that our process of stolen and broken down antennas won't go unnoticed. So I'm down in time. 1 second. Thank you for listening.
Mr. James Lafferty, followed by Ted Hayes.
Yeah, Jim Lafferty, Director of the National Alerts Guild in Los Angeles, Chief and Commissioners. Mine is a question on process. A number of us are here today to talk about a demand that we've just made to the press to have an investigation by the Department of Justice for violations of the consent decree by the LAPD. And my question is, how do we get that item on the agenda so that people from the public don't have to simply wait till the end of the meeting by way of general comment? It seems to me a call for a Department of Justice investigation of violations of the law, vandalism and other violations of the law that the chief himself has said he doesn't intend to address, should be on the agenda at some point. And I honestly don't know how to put it on the agenda. And yet the citizens, it seems to me, ought to be able to put such an item on the agenda. So I look for instruction from someone here as to how to do that so that I don't have to frankly speak at this point out of turn and not really to the chief's report. Thank you.
I'd be jesting if I suggested that the police department was a low-budget agency. But we can't get that x-ray machine outside fixed. Now, the only reason I believe it deserves to be fixed is because there's a standing line outside waiting, while the people are waiting to be meticulously and thoroughly searched with their bags, their garments, and everything else. So what's the problem with the x-ray machine? Don't have a spare one in the warehouse? Can't afford to get it fixed? Whatever. But it should be done. Now, I have managed to read some of the material distributed by some of the previous speakers, and I believe some of it deserves attention. All of us know that police officers engage with the worst people in our society and also engage with the best people in our society at their very worst. Now, the material I read was something I'm familiar with, is the fact that when human beings encounter these ghastly situations, horrible situations, it affects them psychologically, emotionally, various other ways. Some people have the ability to shed it, disregard it, live through it. Others can't. They're deeply affected by it. That's called post-traumatic stress syndrome. So I believe that's important that we pay attention to that because it probably can't exist. We know that when there's a horrific situation on a campus, immediately there's an attempt to mediate the effect that might have on the students and the faculty. I believe we should also have such a situation within the police department. I'm pretty certain that it does exist, but we need to know about it, how it functions, what it does, and how effective it is. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now on item number 3, the report of the Executive Director, Mr. Tiefenk.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the Commission. Just one brief item. Our next community meeting is going to be in Council District 12
on May 28th at 6:30 p.m., and I believe it's going to be at the Good Shepherd's Church. I'll have that address next week, but that again is May 28th. And that concludes my report.
We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Herman. Thank you. Item number 4, the report of the Inspector General. Mr. Bustamante.
Thank you, Commissioners. No comment today.
We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Prentice Jenkins. I'm sorry, 2. Mr. Prentice Jenkins and Mr. Herman.
We all have a public life, a private life, and a secret life. Usually, the mental illness that people suffer, it spills over into their secret life. There's an old saying amongst cops, better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I think this is what happened to Africa. We have 2 helicopters. I've been telling the chief about these helicopters blasting over my residence. Gay cops are everywhere, on the down low are everywhere, and they're in helicopters too. 91, the helicopter crashed. They said crashed. The hood said he was shot down. In 2011, somebody fired on another helicopter. What were those cops in those helicopters doing to these people? To have them fire on them. I know what they were doing, and I know who's up in those helicopters. The reality is, how can cops and firemen help people on Skid Row when they're worse off mentally than the people on Skid Row? You can see the guy yelling and screaming on Skid Row. You can see his mental illness, but you can't see these guys' mental illness. They stand straight, but they're screaming inside. The nightmares run over and over in their heads, of children's heads with bullet holes in their heads and blood-soaked pillows. Of children who were murdered by their fathers, and he murdered the entire family. Firemen come up on families burned to death, and they get that smell in their nose. That's mental illness. Post-traumatic stress is mental illness, folks, and these people have it, and they have badges and guns. The reality is this: when they killed Africa, did anyone test those cops to see if they were on drugs or alcohol, or did they test them for mental illness? No one does that. I'm saying post-traumatic stress is the reason a man shoots a man running away from him. That's post-traumatic stress.
Mr. Herman.
Mr. Inspector General, Mr. Bustamante, on behalf of the public, I petition you and inform you today that the sales of alcohol by the councilmen, those elected officials that we, the taxpayers, pay for our service, have bamboozled us to believe that alcohol is a good substance to determine convenience and necessity. I, like many of our officers, enjoy fine wine and a great glass of beer when I'm at home on my day off, after working 12, 15-hour shifts, 4 days a week, sometimes 5 for the overtime because we haven't gotten our 8% raise from the city of Los Angeles. But yet, the permit process by elected officials is grossly ignored. And I demand the Inspector General to investigate on behalf of all of you hardworking officers here so that we don't have to have these pursuits on a regular basis. We don't have to have people gunned down, run down, mowed down in Los Angeles. And all of you in Los Angeles, you know well better that if you're going to drink, turn the keys over to someone else. Take a bus, take a train, all the convenience in the world. But alcohol is not a convenience, it's a drug. Like the many drugs that are influenced in our minority communities. I know it for a fact. I grew up in a minority community, Mr. Soboroff. And so the action of Inspector General's job is to protect those of us who are petitioning to investigate why the city of Los Angeles continues to offer, give, solicit, take bribes, corrupt, abuse the public when it comes to the sales of alcohol in Los Angeles. We don't need no more bars. We don't need cafes with bars. And we definitely don't need more markets to influence on drugs and necessity. Thank you. 1-0. Bye.
Thank you. We're now on item number 5. Item number 5 consists of information items and filed items relative to noise variances and special event permits submitted for the period ending April 10th, 2015. Item number 6, presentations. Do we have any presentations?
None today.
Thank you. Item number 7, consent agenda items. These items are considered to be routine and non-controversial, upon which the board is provided with adequate information for approval without inquiry or discussion. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special, 7A through 7I?
Move approval of items 7A through 7I.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're now on item 8, regular agenda items. 8A and 8B are verbal presentations. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special for 8C through 8F?
I'd like to give the opportunity to the department to talk to us about item C. And move approval of items 8D, 8E, and 8F.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will begin with item number 8A. That would be verbal presentation and update from the Commanding Officer and Community Police Advisory Board representative regarding community-initiated problem-solving, crime strategies, and other programs and goals within the Newton area.
Morning. Thanks for taking the time to come in.
Good morning, Mr. President, honorable members of the Police Commission, Chief, Inspector General. My name is George Rodriguez. I am the commanding officer for Newton area, recently assigned as of January 31st, 2015. Today we're going to, by way of presentation, I'm sure most of you are aware where Newton is, but I'd like to just refresh your recollection anyway. Newton Division is just southeast of Los Angeles, serving about 9.5 square miles, a population of about 250,000 citizens. Currently, our CPAB is very actively involved in our community. We have 32 members, 30 of which are active. And we have a very diverse group that comprises our CPAB, basically reflecting our composition of our community. We have 12 African Americans in our CPAB, 9 Hispanics, 5 male whites, 4 Asians, and 2 of other descents. We also have a wide spread representation of the local businesses and community members within our community, and they're broken down as follows. We have 8 of them that are business owners. We have 4 of them that are managers. We have 4 that are educators within our community. We have 7 that are clergy members. We have 5 that are community members, and 4 that represent city services, such as Park and Recs and other city services as well. And as you're probably well aware, in 2014, Newton area experienced great challenges within the community as it relates to our community relations. And in 2015, that is one of our main focus, and that is to regain the trust and confidence in our community. And our CPAB has been actively engaged in a variety of outreach and community forums and educational pieces to make sure that they understand and realize that we as a police department are here not only to protect, but we're also here to serve and provide all the city services that are at our disposal. And what I'd like to do at this time is turn over, and by the way, my apologies, I forgot to introduce my CPAC co-chairs. I got quickly rattled here. Gilbert Rodillo is my CPAC co-chair. He has been over the past 2.5 years, and he's a very active member of our community. And what I'd like to do is highlight some of the things that the CPAP has been engaged in as far as the community outreach and building of trust, and provide you with an idea of some of the things that they're doing.
Thank you, Captain. Good morning, everyone. I am
Morning,
Gilbert
sir.
Rodillo. I am the CPAP co-chair. I'm also an associate director of community initiatives for a nonprofit called A Place Called Home, and I'm also the regional field technology manager for FedEx Ground Western Region.
Wait a minute, say that again. The last thing.
Regional field technology manager for FedEx Ground.
Uh-huh.
So,
Your home number?
are you looking for a discount on shipping, sir?
No, I just want it to come on time every time, baby.
We do our best.
I know.
Our CPAP does have 5 goals. One of them, Captain did mention, is to increase our membership. We are very proud of our membership. We are very diverse, and we are very proud of what we do and what we represent. We also want to create a robust youth CPAP. This is something that has been very popular in other CPAPs. For us, it is definitely a very important initiative. I'll get into a little bit more detail. And then education, I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Improve or increase the quality of life of the citizens in the Newton Police Division, and also perform and create special events throughout the division. We have an eager young lady from Mount St. Mary's University who is majoring in criminal justice. She would like to take the charge in leading our youth CPAP. And currently we have our senior lead officers at Newton Division have conducted 3 academies for our youth at Santee and Jefferson High School, as well as Maya Angelou High School. From that pool of students, we plan to recruit and form a very strong youth CPAP. And we want to integrate these youth to be, to partner with the adult CPAP so that we can continue our initiative. In terms of education, again, the academies, we've held those for the adults, both in English and Spanish. They're very well received, but we want to continue that. We feel that a lot of our citizens are not really aware what the day-to-day life is for a police officer. We want to let them know what they go through, and then that would, there's some empathy there as well, and then a better understanding in terms of what they go through on a day-to-day basis. We recently had a resource fair and a peace march. This past Saturday at Fred Roberts Park. And we also had an immigration forum at St. Patrick's Catholic Church where the department discussed the mandate on Special Order 40. The quality of life, we have a very great relationship with the councilman's office. We conduct monthly cleanups, and especially in areas that have been affected by Part 1 crimes and other crimes. So we tend to go to the hot spots and kind of make our presence known, educate the community in terms of what the CPAP is and how they can also join in and help make a difference within their community. May 8th, we are going to finish our community garden, which is located at the Newton Police Station. It's a beautiful garden. I think Chief Charlie Beck, I think you visited it at our first unveiling, but we're at phase 4. Yeah, so we're wrapping up phase 4. It's a very nice place, and it's open to the community. So now that we're
Community garden at the police station.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I would like to invite you to come check it out too. Again, that's May 8th.
Yeah.
It's a very nice project, and I mean we're completed with that. But now our teens are saying, hey, why don't we install gardens at our neighbors' homes? And so that's what they're going for next. I mean, they're making it work autonomously, which is great. So we're giving the teens that opportunity in terms of their leadership. Lastly, we would like to conduct a few more community events. National Night Out is something that we do every year. It's something that everyone does, but we want to go beyond that. This year, we do want to add a job fair component because we don't just want it to be a celebration. There has to be information and education disseminated to the masses. So while we're feeding the community, we also want to let them know, hey, you can get a job here, or you can find some help here. In fact, on April 24th, we're having a Newton area barbecue located at Broadway and 65th, which is a very affected area. But the citizens there feel that they're a little disenfranchised, so we want to provide the event and provide resources to them as well to show them that there are resources out there so that they can empower themselves to be to again have a better quality of life. Captain, did you want to add to anything that I mentioned?
Absolutely. And what I'd like to do is take this opportunity to invite the commissioners for those that are available on April 24th from 4 to 7. This is a community barbecue right out in the middle of 65th Street between Broadway and Main. We're partnering up with our grid. April 24th from 4 to 7th. We're going to be cooking approximately 2,000 hot dogs, or we're going to cook until we're out of hot dogs. We're bringing trains, pony rides, and all those things for the kids of the community to enjoy. So far, we've gotten a great response from the community members. They're all aware of this event that's coming forth, and a lot of the community leaders from within that area are making sure that all of the kids understand and know so that they can enjoy it. We're also working with the radio company that's going to be coming out and broadcasting live from the location, as well as bringing some of their trinkets and giveaways that they're going to be able to provide for the community as well. So we're looking forward to that, and if any of you guys are available, we'd love to have you guys. April 24th from 4 to 7.
Thanks for the presentation and report on the activities, community-related activities that you've been engaging in. Have you seen improvements through these activities in community relations based on the events in 2014 that you mentioned?
Absolutely. As you probably know, 65th and Broadway was an area where we had great challenges and a lot of community issues down there. One of the things that we've been able to do is closely engage with the community leaders, which we have met. Learned some of their trials and tribulations and learn about the lack of services and lack of attention that was being done for that area. As a result of that, we've been able to bring some of the activities, the summer tip-off basketball game, we're getting a bus, and we're bringing a bunch of kids from that area to enjoy the game and all the festivities to go. So in my conversations with those community leaders, they're very content and happy that we are finally paying attention to their area, not only us from a police department, but also from the grid, from the councilman's office, and making everybody aware of some of the needs and challenges that they have on that south end portion of our division.
And you have CPAB members from that area as well?
We're working on 3 of them. I do have applications on my desk that I'm currently reviewing. So that is one of our goals. Also Bethune Middle School, which is right next to it on Central, meeting with their principal later on today and working with their parent group to get them involved into the CPAB and the CPAP process as well.
Right. If I may add to that, one of our main goals is to have a representative of every school from within the Newton division in our CPAP, just because it's an easy outlet for them to provide the information that we have to all the parents and youth within those schools. So, but I know that that's an area we're definitely working on. Mm.
So would you consider Newton as a district, or the Four Corners of Newton as a relatively underserved community?
Wouldn't necessarily say underserved, Mr. President. I do believe that the southern portion of our division borders down on Florence. There's a lot of neglect, I think would be a strong word, but because it is so far down, it is an area where we don't generally have that large concentration of crime. We don't get a lot of activity down there, so it's not paid attention as much as it should be.
You're talking about programs to keep for healthy alternatives for at risk.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're
Absolutely.
reaching for. It's what the department does, and it's what a lot of nonprofits do as well.
Correct.
What's your competition down there? How many gangs?
We've got about 58 to 60 active gangs
You
in
have
our
60
area.
active gangs in Newton.
That's
Okay.
correct, sir.
How many people in Newton area, in that area, have access to have cable television in their homes? What percentage would you think?
I could not answer that question, but
You're
looking
rough.
at the statistics, probably less than 20, 30%.
Less than 20 to 30%.
Correct.
Okay, and so about 80% of those people have no access to watch a Dodger game on TV, or a Laker game on TV, or a Clipper game on TV, or a who'd I miss?
Go to the beach.
No. Dodgers, Lakers, Clippers,
Kings.
or Kings game.
Kings.
Okay.
Angels.
Okay. So there's no sports on free TV available to about 80% of those kids.
Fair statement.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
You think that makes our job a little bit harder?
I would think so.
Yeah, I do too.
Absolutely.
Point of information.
Absolutely.
I'm happy for all of the guys that are selling their teams for these huge prices, but it's not just ticket prices going up. This is the end result. The end result is we have to push harder and work harder, and the nonprofits do, because these kids don't have a lot of these kinds of opportunities. And when you take even the Dodgers, okay, even the Dodgers, when more people were at the opening ceremony, opening game, than were able to watch it on television, to me is a huge problem. And I commend you guys, because what you're doing and what this department's doing and what these nonprofits are doing are fighting uphill. Because you have 8 gangs?
58 gangs.
Yeah, and I think they are delighted that those kids can't watch sports on TV for free, because it gives them a great opportunity to go out and recruit them.
Absolutely.
Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we do have 2 public comment cards. So we have Mr. Ted Hayes and Mr. Pete White.
This has nothing to do with Newton Street, but there are 2 categories that this might fit into, some of the things, the remarks I made. One is public relations, and one is, never mind. I simply wonder whether there's a budget to carry some of the public relations situations that we have, community relations situations that we have. Sometimes it becomes extreme in the eyes of the public. we find that helicopters from a department is dedicated to land in a park so the kids can come look at it and play in it, that seems to be excessive. But I do, and I think most people appreciate the new face of the LAPD, and as expressed by the Newton Department personnel here today, that is an aspect of the new face of the LAPD. That face puts itself in front of children, which is important. Whether or not that's going to have an effect on their ultimate criminal behavior, I have no idea. Perhaps it shall. But aren't there grants to provide to police departments for these kinds of activities? Many instances in the city of LA, grants have been sitting aside in Washington and various other places that are completely ignored until the date for application expires. Too late. So I would hope that the new face can be enhanced, promoted, and paid for. Call resources, I call it money. And certainly expertise in these areas to fulfill the goal that they're attempting to reach are important also. Thank you.
Pete White, and then we have another card from Hamid Khan.
Man, I'm over here trying to be quiet, but you make it hard, sober off. Let me say what it is and why the area is the way it is. Violence of poverty, mass incarceration, school to prison pipeline, structural racism, white supremacy, the legacy of white supremacy in this country, the drug war, deindustrialization, unemployment, underemployment, apartheid, segregation. The pomp and circumstance, you should knock it off, particularly when folks from the community are here listening to that. You are not the eyes, the ears, or the voice of my community. And that little back and forth about the gangs and the competition between the cops and the gangs, that's bullshit. This list of things, that's the problem. That's the problem.
You and I are making progress, pal, because we agree on about 10% of the stuff you've said today, and usually I don't agree with anything that you've said today. Next.
Glad you're finally talking.
Next.
I got something to say to you as well.
Mr.
I don't agree with anything you say.
Hamid Khan.
I don't know what else I would say to you, Steve Soboroff, except like in the pathetic way that you're constantly insulting the communities. But at least one thing, whether it was a Freudian slip or not, at least you acknowledge that this is a big gang in blue. And when you talk about competition, yes, it is a competition. Because this is a gang of thieves, this is a gang of murderers, this is a gang who killed Ezell Ford on 65th and Broadway. And look at me when I'm speaking to you.
No.
Because you have no shame. Because you will not look at me.
The public doesn't matter.
Because the public doesn't matter to you. Did you even acknowledge that Ezell Ford was murdered? Did you even acknowledge that on 65th and Broadway? Did you even acknowledge, besides just, all these accolades and anything and sensationalism? No, because the bottom line is profit for you and people are a commodity. And that's exactly how you operate. And people are seeing your true colors now.
We have no additional cards on this. We're now on item 8B, Departments and Office of the Inspector General's verbal presentation and discussion relative to the progress of their working group regarding a review of the training for response to suicide by cops situations.
What number are we?
8B.
Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Lou Ann Pennell, Director of Police Training and Education.
And Dr. Kevin Jablonski, Chief Psychologist, Commanding Officer of Behavioral Science Services.
So this is a follow-up to the report that was done earlier by the Inspector General. We wanted to take a little time to ensure that we had gone through and reviewed the key elements of what the report was getting at. Certainly even just this last Sunday at 1:50 in the morning, we received a report of a missing person out of Foothill. The missing person told his father that he wanted to kill himself and left his residence with a plastic toy gun. Missing person told his father that he was going to call PD and point the toy gun at PD in hopes of being shot by PD. So we have these very difficult situations of trying to train officers how to deal with what may or may not be coming with them. And sometimes, and so many of them have to do with mental health. I think the last time we went through sort of the day by day of what we do in the mental health intervention training, and certainly, again, the scope of what we call a mental health crisis can be everything a very wide difference in what we're trying to teach officers. I had put up a video just to show you one of the things that we do to try to get the officers to consider any kind of situation that comes before them. And basically we ask them to try to start evaluating, what have you got? What do you have when you arrive on scene? This is only about a minute and a half. Oops.
What'd you do, break the towel rack now? No, you just broke it off, ripped it off the wall.
I can't get the volume.
Messed up. I just don't have the heart to throw them out.
Filming and talking to you and filming this video? Because we have to do it.
We're not going to jail. You need to shoot me down, or we drive all around here. I suggest you get on the ground. No. Shoot me, or we're gonna drive through this town on a high-speed chase. What's it gonna be? Yes, you get out of the car right now. Why doesn't this officer have a gun pointed at me? What's that? Why doesn't this officer have a gun pointed at me? Why do I? Why doesn't he? Because I've got one. Then shoot me now. Because I got one here and I'm about to pull it on you.
So that's just a quick overview of kind of the different situations that an officer can face. The scope of mental illness is not one thing. When we talk about mental illness training or mental illness, being able to address those concerns, it's not any one thing. So it's very difficult to provide every officer, especially when they're in 21 different geographic divisions and the situations are very broad. So we looked at what we're doing in in-service training. Certainly we have it in our mental health intervention training. We have it in the academy. We went back and looked at where we could possibly improve and get more information to officers, and we are going to update our roll call training that we had done previously that has mental health or suicide by cop indicators and also tactical considerations, and we'll be putting that into an e-learning and update that and get that out this year as well. I think even our community members acknowledge, and you acknowledge, that there are two victims when we have situations with suicide by cop. Certainly there's the individual who's feeling so desperate that they are provoking somebody else to take their life, but then we also have the officers involved. And to ensure that we are looking at and addressing that, Dr. Jablonski, I'm going to ask him to address what we are doing for our officers.
Good morning. I believe that most of you are well aware of the fact that behavioral sciences provides psychological counseling and evaluation to department employees, sworn and civilian alike. Following every OIS, the officers are required to come to BSS, be evaluated, and if we find that there are issues of concern, then our recommendations to the CO would be to keep the people out of the field. In regards to these situations in which there's an individual of the community who is mentally ill and it ends up in a situation, as we refer to it, as suicide by cop, we often find that the police officers themselves are in fact very negatively emotionally impacted by those situations. I think to some extent it's often lost on the public that in the 20 years that I've been with the department and the hundreds of individuals that I've debriefed, that I've not yet seen a situation where a police officer was in fact, if you will, comfortable having to have shot at, let alone take someone's life. They take this very seriously. When they do in fact have a situation in which they use deadly force and it involves someone who is, if I can use the term, actually engaging them or egging them on to engage in deadly force, those officers are often, and I can't think of a situation where they are not negatively impacted psychologically by that, not only in the moment, but it's something that lives with them for their career. If I may, there was a situation many years ago, thinking back about 16, 17 years ago, when I got a phone call in the early morning hours from a captain who was in a very pleading sense asking me to please come out and see this police officer who was not doing well after having just shot a young man of 16 years old. This was an individual who subsequently turned out to be mentally ill. But the engagement consisted, and I'm going to, because there is confidentiality with all communications with me and my staff, change some of the information just to protect the individual's rights. But this individual was very devastated by this situation. The captain was concerned because the officer was crying profusely and no one could console him. What ended up being at issue here was the fact that this officer was devastated by the fact that this mentally ill individual had engaged him in a grapple, had attempted to take hold of his weapon, and at very close range, the officer had to use deadly force. Now, use of force board, the chief of police, the police commission, and even outside folks ended up determining that it was a legitimate use of force, and it was within policy. But for this officer, the fact is that having to exercise this deadly force impacted him and impacted his worldview. He came on this job to help people. This was the last thing he ever wanted to do. And this individual was, if you will, hurt by that. Now, it's not equivalent by any measure, and I hope no one misunderstands me, to the fact that someone almost lost their lives. The young man actually ended up living. But that officer, I saw him many years later, and he yells across to me from the field up at the academy, Doc, I want to tell you something. And I was a little concerned, quite frankly, that he was going to tell me how this had ruined his life. And while he denied that it ruined his life, he said that he still thinks about it. He still has periodic dreams about it. And in these situations, while we may refer to the officer as the secondary victim, and certainly not to the extent that the individual who loses their life, but these officers are significantly emotionally impacted by it, and that's part of the reason why BSS, Behavioral Sciences, exists.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Questions?
Well, I guess just a comment. I mean, certainly, any officer-involved shooting has, I think, multiple tragic consequences for the victim, for the officer involved, and then the community. And I think it's important to recognize that that trauma, any kind of traumatic event, alters one's worldview. And just to reiterate that that alteration of the worldview it's not disconnect from reality. It's it's sort of a new reality. It's a new awakening, and that's going to persist forever. And one of the other, I think, important tragic aspects to officer-involved shootings, well, I guess when we're talking about this subject in particular, is that that the institution of law enforcement has become something such that it is a tool, and this is an example of it, a tool for the exercise of violence, and that's tragic as well. Comment. There's no need to respond.
Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Ted Hayes.
Mr. Hayes, sir?
That is an excellent example of what we have to ask a question about. The guy in the white truck, looking back, indicating what he was going to do, was he eligible to be shot? Could an officer actually open fire on a person saying, shoot me, because he wants to be shot under those circumstances? He didn't appear to be armed. He didn't appear to be dangerous to the cops or anyone else. Could he have been shot? Because that's the question about suicide by cop. in that particular video, is a very poor example of a circumstance that might prompt the person to be actually killed by a police officer. Why isn't the other officer pointing his gun at me? That's the question of the alleged victim. Very poor example. I hope you have better examples than that in your... I've seen these incidents where young men have pulled their shirts apart and say, "Shoot me," at least 4 or 5 times in my life on the street. And nobody shot them. We weren't going to shoot them from what I could understand. Now, what I'd like to know about is the fact that some time ago we found out police officers have the highest rate of divorce of any members in our population. How many officers commit suicide? We understand suicides are rampant in the military, those coming back from the Gulf situation. And as mentioned before, post-traumatic stress disorder does exist, and it should be an element of the lifestyle of our officers. So suicide is important, but we need to know about the suicide in the police department. I've mentioned, so other people have mentioned the incredible stress brought on by this particular occupation. And those are suicides I'm particularly concerned about.
And there are no other public comment cards, sir?
Thank you.
Go to 8C.
Okay, we're now on 8C, Department's report dated April 9th, 2015, relative to the recommendation for the Medal of Valor.
Good morning, Commissioners. Deputy Chief Bill Murphy, Commanding Officer of Police Sciences and Training Bureau. And I'll open up with a quick little recommendation, and then I'll recap this Medal of Valor request. And then what I want to do is actually read a comment of a note from the witness in the lobby that was there. I think it really ties this up very good. Okay, it is recommended that the Honorable Board of Police Commissioners award the Medal of Valor to Officer Alberto Ortiz and Officer April Lockhart for their heroic actions on April 7th, 2014. Basically, to recap this one, this occurred in the lobby of West Traffic Division. The suspect had entered the lobby. Both of those officers were working behind the desk. When they do desk duties, people come in, they ask for advice, they take traffic reports. The suspect in this case, the person who ends up getting in the shooting, comes up, and one of the officers, Ortiz, was taking a traffic report, so he was tied up. The other officer said, "Can I help you?" And the suspect said immediately, "Well, I'd like to make a complaint." The officer said, "If you just stand by, we'll get you in just a moment." At that time, he pulled out a semi-automatic handgun and began to immediately open fire on both of those officers. The resident or citizen who happened to be there taking a traffic report or getting one immediately dived onto the floor, to get out of this gun battle, and crawled on his hands and knees to a bathroom that was in the lobby. We're also very, very fortunate in this incident as that there was a community meeting that was going on adjacent to the lobby. There's a community room right there, and approximately 20 community members were in that meeting. And had any of them come out, they would have walked right into this gun battle. Both officers immediately responded to the actions, which was really an unprovoked ambush of the officers. When he pulled that gun out and started firing at them, they exchanged gunfire right away with the suspect. The suspect was described as ducking and trying to get away from the bullet. So he was canting his position and trying to get as many rounds off as possible. One of the officers, Officer Lockhart, went to slide lock, which means all the bullets were fired from the weapon, had to duck behind the counter and reloaded the weapon. This created a situation where Officer Ortiz, who by this point had gone to the end of the table there where they take the reports, he was using it as cover and concealment. He was engaged in a very, very heated gun battle with the suspect, and the distance was just only a few feet. He was actually taking multiple rounds. He was hit in his arms and legs. And what ended up ultimately happening is that the returning of the fire, they were able to strike the suspect, and he went down in the lobby. Officer Ortiz then crawled over, was banging on the door, asking for help. Officers obviously responded right away. They took the suspect into custody. What I do want to read, though, is that citizen that was in the lobby actually wrote us a note. It was not in your 15-2, it was not in the memo to you, but it is in the commendation. And I think it summarizes why this is a Medal of Valor case. And this is his quotes. As the sole, if unfortunate, civilian participant in the events of Monday, April 7th, 2014, I can honestly state that I did not believe that I would be alive today to write this note. It is no exaggeration to assert that in response to the shooter's assault, the actions of Officer Ortiz and Lockhart saved my life. In the face of mortal danger, their ability to return fire and keep the assailant's attention afforded me the precious time needed to slip into the bathroom and out of harm's way. Had they reacted any slower in a different manner, it is entirely possible that I might have become a target myself. Clearly, their ability to apply their training, along with their commitment to an oath to protect resulted in my being a survivor of this incident instead of a grim statistic. No words can truly reflect my gratitude. With that said, I'd like to present to you a recommendation of Medal of Valor for Officer Lockhart and Ortiz.
We have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
All in favor? Aye, good, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Wonderful.
Thank you. We're now on a public comment. And we have 11 comment cards. We'll start with Prentice Jenkins, Hamid Khan, Jamie Garcia, and Pete White.
I'd like the commission to know that I do a lot of video. The officer asked me how come I had so many phones. I videotape everything everywhere I go. I videotape whenever I'm out. The reality is I'm not afraid of cops. I'm suspicious of them, but I'm not afraid of them. And trust me, we need cops. I believe that. I also believe that, contrary to what everybody believes, he's the best chief we ever had. This guy right here. So the reality is, for some people, they don't like cops. That's not for me. When you're dealing with cops, cops are responsible for every riot in this country. 1965, Watts riot. A cop stopped a black man and pushed his mother around. What was that? That was 34 people dead, 1,000 injured, 4,000 black people arrested, and $40 million in damages. Los Angeles, 1992. White cop beats a black man, Rodney King. 53 people dead, 2,000 injured, 11,000 arrested, $1 billion. Boston, Massachusetts, 1770. British sentries, who were the police, fired on a crowd and killed 6 people. And we know what that started. That started the Revolutionary War. Shooting at cops started the Revolutionary War. That kicked King George out of this country. Shooting at cops. I don't advocate anyone ever shooting at a cop. But I don't advocate cops shooting at people. I don't advocate cops doing their personal business. It's like what Michael J. Fox said in Casualties of War, when Sean Penn grabbed that young girl and they raped her in the forest. And he said, "You're going to rape her." And Sean Penn said, that's not what the military does. This ain't the cops.
Hamid Khan.
Hello, Hamid Khan with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. I'm hoping that you all have a copy of this letter. This is a detailed complaint that the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition and its members filed today with the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division and the Attorney General, demanding that they reopen the federal consent decree that was imposed on LAPD from 2001 and finally lifted in 2013. And in 2013, when Judge Feast formally lifted the consent decree, he was clearly told that the city and police leaders made assurances that LAPD had adequate safeguards, such as the cameras, the in-car video cameras in place. But then in April of 2014, the LA Times reported that LAPD officers had sabotaged and tampered with this equipment in dozens of patrol cars. And in essence, 92 out of 300 patrol cars had been sabotaged. Now, this raises several questions. Number one, that, one can understand maybe one got broke or something like that, or two got broke, but 92 out of 300, not 92 out of 3,000, 92 out of 300 were intentionally sabotaged. And number two, that there's an order from January 29, 2012 from the commanding officer of South Bureau in which he had clearly laid out a protocol which it established officer responsibilities, area DICVS coordinator responsibilities, watch commander responsibilities, training coordinator responsibilities, field supervisor responsibilities, and area garage supervisor responsibilities to immediately notify the supervisor of the condition of the equipment. And the word is immediately. So in essence, all of these systems of checks and accountability completely failed. And we've been coming to this commission. We've written a letter to you back in February, and you just came back and you said, well, all the paragraphs have been checked off. We wrote a letter to you individually, and you said, nope, there's been no response. So we have no more recourse left because this commission has completely failed. It is not capable of governing. The department is not capable of self-governance, and now we're reaching out to the federal government, and we'll go to all bounds. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jamie Garcia. On several occasions, when communities across Los Angeles have brought to the Commission's attention LAPD's programs, policies, and enforcement practices that continue to violate our human and civil rights, the Commission has repeatedly dismissed these concerns and failed to act upon the community's request to investigate. So, as you all know, on February 24th, we submitted a detailed 8-page letter to the commissioners outlining several issues that warranted further investigation. They included the further militarization of LAPD by the acquisition of drones, the sham body camera hearings, racial profiling that's inherent in the suspicious activity reporting, but most troubling and seeming most uninteresting to you all was the violation and intentional sabotaging of the recent federal consent decree. So the Police Commission is a body that's responsible for ensuring accountability to the public and people first. However, the issue of 92 out of 300 antennas of the digital in-car camera systems being dismantled and sabotaged by LAPD officers was not important enough to warrant an investigation to find out who, when, and how do these violations occur. The same commission wants us to trust in the use of body cameras. If this commission cannot even honestly maintain a system of 300 in-car video cameras, how can we trust the massive investment of taxpayer money into body cameras that this will fare any better? This is not solely an issue of electronic monitoring of police, but more an issue of trust, honesty, and dignity of the Civilian Oversight Board. This commission had an opportunity to uphold the consent decree and call for rigorous investigations and find out why these cameras were tampered with in a systematic manner. However, this commission paid lip service to reforms set in place by the federal government and did nothing when the scandal was revealed by LA Times. The nation right now is looking for reforms in the shape of Civilian Oversight Board, and this particular Oversight Board is a disgrace. The LA Board of Police Commission cowers when it should stand up and hides facts when it should shine the light of meticulous investigation. Contrary to the propaganda, LA is not a model city of reform. No, I understand that, sir, but I'm just making sure you're paying attention.
Time's over.
I understood
Pete
that.
Time's over.
I understood it.
Pete White, followed by Jerry Dietrich, Suzette Shaw, Ruth Sarnoff, and Gilbert Sauceda.
You're a special brand of white privilege, Soboroff. And it makes our case, actually. You make our case when you sit there with tight lips and frowning and cutting people off, that this body is not representative of us. Thousands of individuals have been in the streets in front of this building within the past months. Holding up the case of Ezell Ford, who was shot and killed where? On 65th and Broadway, and Brother Africa, and 619 deaths, and commemorating the death of Martin Luther King. And saying to you in this body that business as usual will not go on. Waging a mass voice of no confidence, a vote of no confidence against this shim-sham of a process. Racial profiling complaints continue to go disregarded. Tools used to capture police misconduct is summarily destroyed and you do nothing. Documented evidence continues to be discarded. You just don't care. We've brought the United Nations in. You don't care. With the spotlight shining on you, you just do business as usual. I mean, even Commissioner Salzman, on the reappointment of Beck, he was like, no, we can't do that, because when we were under the consent decree, this department was much more transparent. So I have a vote of non-confidence. This is what Salzman was saying for the reappointment of this chief. And so we're going again to the Department of Justice because we don't believe you have any interest in being the voice of the civilian community. We don't believe that the protecting and serving is the protecting and serving of everyone. We're saying we're going to keep coming back because it's our duty. I don't give a damn about you rearing back and being upset. I'm more upset than you. My community is dying.
Thank you.
Jerry Dietrich.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jerry Dietrich. I'm with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. And I'm just going to reiterate a lot of the stuff that's already been said because this consent decree thing is just driving me crazy, and now we're going beyond you. But on January 29th in 2012, there was an order meant to establish the Bureau protocol for the Coban digital in-car video system inside police vehicles. The document established officer responsibilities. It required immediate notification to your superiors that these cameras were not working correctly. And obviously, we've all heard about how they didn't do that. So a few months ago, Beck came in and said to this body that we were unable to find out who tampered with these cameras because so many different cops went into so many different cars, which totally I understand. And this body was totally satisfied. I was not. I do not find this sufficient. I think we would like to know, okay, it's one of these 6 guys. Yeah, okay, we'll think about this 6 guys. We need to know the names of those 6 guys that were in that car, or maybe 60 guys. I don't know. But anyhow, I think the public needs this information.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Suzette Shaw, and I am a concerned citizen. I am glad that the folks spoke earlier in regards to officer trauma. I believe that there is more of it than goes reported, especially given that we have so many officers who come back from military background, who are coming back from trauma situations in the Middle East and so forth. Folks, we live in a military state society. The police shooting of Brother Africa in Skid Row on March 1st was a raise of consciousness to the community that he could have been any one of us. The shooting death of him did not and should not have happened, nor should the incarceration of Trishawn Carey. The very same day, at the extreme and zealous charges have now been brought against her. Make no mistake, she is a political prisoner. We demand her release. Deal with people, folks, as humane and conscious as possible. The deadly police force does not have to be used each and every time. As Mr. White spoke earlier, April 4th marked the commemorating of the 47th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination, which was 47 years ago. Civil rights for blacks and brown folks continue to be violated. Human rights continue to be ignored. There is a raise of consciousness, however, in the community, ladies and gentlemen. We demand that you do away with burying your heads in the sand, that you no longer turn your blind eye, and that Jim Crow policies and procedures and actions that you understand will not go unnoticed nor be allowed. We will continue to march, and we will continue to speak, because you can't kill Africa. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ruth Sarnoff. I agree with the demand that the Civil Rights Division and Attorney General reopen the City of Los Angeles consent decree. I think it was no accident that it was the LAPD South Bureau and the LAPD Central Bureau that have strategically tampered with in-car video systems. And I agree with those who have called for agendizing for a public hearing on all matters pertaining to the things raised today. I want to bring to your attention the life of the people on the street is it's not only a mental health issue, there are many, many physical health issues, and the cost of living on the street is very great. You breathe some of the worst air anywhere because of the trucks and being in an industrial area, and also sleeping on the street. The lack of water in the downtown area forces people that are homeless to spend money to buy water. I can think of nothing more disgraceful than not having drinking fountains, toilets, and places to sit down in the central city. It's like disappear during the day. What kind of a life is it if you spend your whole life searching for food, searching for water, searching for a service that probably is not going to help you, and listening to platitudes about building of housing in a city and in an area that's been adjudged by the state, I think, to need about 500,000 new housing units. The desperation for housing goes across all sections of society. I hope you will hold another hearing. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm Gilbert Salcedo. I'm an attorney in private practice and a member of the National Lawyers Guild. And I'm simply outraged at how 92 patrol cars were sabotaged and the consent decree, federal consent decree, was violated, and nobody investigated this. When one patrol car is sabotaged, that should be cause for investigation. When 92 patrol cars are sabotaged and the consent decree is flouted and no investigation occurs, the people in charge of the investigations should be investigated. And that is you here. This commission is entrusted with protecting the public from police abuse and from oversight of the police department. And when a consent decree is violated so blatantly and you do nothing, you don't even report this to the Department of Justice, then what use is this commission? This commission becomes a waste of resources and was a waste of our time here speaking to you when nothing is done. So, I mean, if that's the way you're going to operate, then I move to dissolve this commission and get a civilian oversight commission that really has teeth and enforcement power. Otherwise, the purpose of having this commission is to build trust with the community, and frankly, you have not earned our trust. We need somebody that we can trust, that can have oversight of the police, meaningful oversight, and if that's not going to be the case, then I think we're wasting our time here. Thank you.
Thanks for your opinion.
Thank you. We have 3 final comment cards. We have James Lafferty, Ted Hayes, and Yvonne Michelle Autry.
Mr. Hayes,
I'm
sir?
curious. We never saw whether that guy actually drove away in that truck, becoming a fleeing suspect. Now, LAPD devised a technique to prevent suspects from fleeing, because many people who were detained or arrested on the street decided they'd run away. It was called a pronoun, before your time, sir. It required the suspect to lie face down on the sidewalk, arms outspread, legs outspread. In any area, he may unfortunately be lying down, clean, dirty, but they're in their Sunday finest. They don't like lying down. Chief Willie Williams came in and he dispensed with the pronoun. But the pronoun was quite effective when it comes to people simply running away. Now, I think that public is generally satisfied that if you're in prison and you go over that wall and the personnel in that guard tower sees you climbing the wall, trying to get over, they can shoot you and kill you. So, under those circumstances, fleeing is prohibited, and it can be deadly. But as I mentioned before, Scott, I'd like to know, and I think the community would like to know, what is the policy on a fleeing suspect? Can they be shot? Okay, Scott, luxury Mercedes-Benz, $15,000, okay. But what is the policy on fleeing? We don't know who might be fleeing. Could be Ted Kaczynski, just about to be arrested. Who is the person apprehended, being detained by the police officer and attempts to run away? we need to get some clarification, some explanation as to what the guidelines and the policy happens to be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Jim Lafferty again, Director of the Lawyers Guild in Los Angeles. I echo everything Brother Gilbert Cedillo said, and so many others have said, and I don't frankly want to, anytime I appear before this commission, I feel I need a shower afterwards, frankly. And the reason for that is the total disregard that this commission has for the public, and it's demonstrated over and over again. Think I'm wrong? Myself and others are going to submit to the executive director a request to place on the agenda the matter we've been discussing today, a rather serious matter, a claim that the LAPD, including its chief, has violated the consent order and has allowed cops to get away with criminal vandalism. That should be at least as important as half of what I've heard being preached and talked about before this commission today. So let's see if I'm wrong and you really are interested in what the public has to do and are prepared to do more than be a rubber stamp for the police department every time they decide to do, or in this case, not do what they should do. We'll submit a request to you. We're going to submit a request to you to be on the agenda next Tuesday so that we can sit up at those chairs at that table too and talk to you about what's going on. And as you interchange with the people at those chairs, you can interchange with us. And Chief, perhaps you can tell us why you said to the LA Times you don't intend to investigate. Because it's complicated? Hell, the LAPD investigates complicated crimes every day in this city. If you're on record as saying that because the crime is complicated, you're not going to have it investigated, I don't know how anybody in this damn city could feel safe. You just don't want to investigate it when your cops commit acts of vandalism and violate a consent decree. That's not equal justice. It's not transparency. It's an outrage, and I want this commission to take it up next Tuesday.
Good morning. It sounds like it's criminal. What we're dealing here with, I believe, is an issue of consciousness. My heart goes out to police officers that because of what they've witnessed and failed to report, commit suicide. I know that the numbers of suicide and that percentage is very high, but I think it's because of a conscious, instead of reporting because they know that they would be murdered by the criminal police officers. Again, you see something, you report it. You see something, you report it. We've been asking for a civilian-based, community-based review for many, many years. So if you would honor our request, then quite possibly not only would you reduce the number of suicides in your ranks, but we could have some parity, some real justice in our communities. That is your call to duty by your higher power, not just this government, but the Creator. For you're responsible and you have to face your God just like we do. And before you suffer His justice and His retaliation, you listen to us because you have this opportunity right now. You know the criminal activity that you witness every day. Report it. See something, say something. But I'd like to say also in response to Mr. Prentice, as he has continued to expose, thank God, the exploitation, sexual harassment of black men, black women also have, for 400 years, plus experienced this. I'd like for the record to express that we are not your sources of energy to be exploited in ritual as battery chargers. We are not seductresses, temptresses, coquettes to be exploited and ritualized, placed in the trash, blamed for all the perverse things that white people have done to black people for 400 years plus, is stealing credit for all that we have contributed or eliminating that from your version of your history. And I also object to surveillance cameras that have been used in the incrimination of people still witnessing this exploitation and injustice in our communities.
Thank you.
This concludes our public comment period. We're now on item number 10, closed session. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 10A and B in accordance with Government Code 54957. We're Back in open session. In closed session, item number 10A1 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 10A2 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 10A3 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. And in closed session, item number 10B was adjudicated. Mr. President, is there a motion for adjournment?
Move adjourned.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.